Hey everyone, welcome back. Before we proceed, we want to quickly implement client-side navigation in our application. We've not linked our dashboard button to the dashboard page we just implemented. So let's do that. To implement client-side navigation, you use the next link tag, or the link component rather. So we go to our index page and the authenticated screen which has the button, and we wrap the button with the link components. So link, you make sure you import it from Next and wrap the button with it, and it has a prop which is a href prop. So you pass in the href prop, which is like the path or URL you want to navigate to. So href, and I just want to simply go to our route, which is our dashboard, and save. Okay, and save. So if I head back now and click on dashboard, and you can see my dashboard page has been loaded. Great. So in this tutorial, we'll be looking at dynamic route and dynamic route and getServerSideProps. Okay, so let's see. Dynamic routes are a feature of NextJS that allow you to create pages that can handle different URL paths dynamically. So this means that you can create a single page component that can display different content based on that dynamic parameter in the URL. So let's look at it in the case of our movie management app. So if we look at the finished product, which is right here, we head to our dashboard. If you click on this movie, for example, you could see that we have the movie details, and if you look at the URL, we have these /movies and /this ID, which is the EMS version ID. Okay, so I'm gonna head back and I'm gonna click on Thor: Love and Thunder, for example, and you can see it's displaying the same page but rendering different data. So this is a single page component, but it's displaying different content based on the dynamic parameter in the URL, in our case, which is our EMS version ID. So this is made possible using dynamic routes. Okay, so in our own project that we're building here, we are going to create a dynamic route that would allow us to display information about a specific movie based on its ID. And in our case, it's the EMS version ID that we're getting from the Flexstar API. Okay, so let's do that. So how do we create a dynamic route in Next.js? So you head to your pages directory, okay? And remember how pages work. The pages has to correspond to the page you want to create has to correspond to the route that you want to create. So how do we create this sort of route? So we have /movies and /our ID, our dynamic ID. So we go to our pages folder, and we create a folder called movies. Okay, so create a folder called movies, and under movies we are going to create our dynamic route. So how do we do that? So right under movies, we're going to create a file with square brackets. So it's going to be id close the square brackets .js, and boom, we are good to go. So I'm just going to render a simple page component, and I'm going to call this page component movie detail. So movie detail. Okay, so let's see that in action. So I'm going to change my route. I'm going to type in movies / let's say 2, and you can see we have our single page components being rendered, and that's that on dynamic routes. So now the next we're going to look at is getServerSideProps. So we previously looked at getStaticProps, and another data fetching function or type in Next.js is getServerSideProps. So getServerSideProps allows us to fetch data on runtime. So compared to getStaticProps, fetches that at build time and packages it in our HTML and preloads it for us. Okay, which makes it faster. But for getServerSideProps, it runs at runtime. It makes that request immediately. We visit that page that has the getServerSideProps function. Okay, and it means that the data that we're fetching is always going to be up to date, and it can be dynamically generated based on our users' requests. And it's particularly useful, when you need to fetch data that changes frequently or needs to be personalized. Okay, and another important thing to note is that get server-side props is only available in pages and not in components. Why? This is because the function needs to be executed on the server, and components are typically, executed on the client. So you run your get server-side props function on your pages and not on your components. So you implement it in your page, and then you pass the data as props to your components if that's how your overall application is going to be structured. Okay, so how do we implement get server-side props in our own case here? So we are going to use it to fetch information about a movie that we click on and we fetch it from the API, and it's going to be dynamic based on the EMS version ID in the URL. And then when we fetch the data, we pass that data as a prop to the page component, and then display the movie details information. So let's have a quick look. So if we head to look at the docs and look at an example, which we have here, you can see we have the page component, okay? And we're going to render the data, but this is where we are now calling the get server-side props. And you can see it looks very identical to get static props. You export the asynchronous function, and you fetch the data that you want, and you pass it as a prop, and then render it on your page component. So how to implement get server-side props? So it's very similar to our get static props. You export async function, and get make sure you get the casing right. Get server-side props, okay, and we return our props, and that's literally it. So how do we capture the item, the dynamic parameter in our URL? Let's take a quick look. So to do that, we have the query object, which we get from get server-side props. We run query, and I'm gonna create a new variable called my query, and pass query into it, and then I'm gonna pass it as my prop and move it in here. And lastly, I'm going to log my query to the console, and I'm going to refresh my page. And as you can see, we have an object of the key of ID with 4. So let's change this to, let's say 20, or let's say 10. And you can see we have our query ID of 10. So now we know how to capture it. So let's get the ID directly. So we could just say query dot ID, and if we refresh our page, you can see we have it logged straight to the screen. So that's how we can capture our ID. And in our case, if you look here, we want to capture the EMS version ID. So we're going to start defining our request. We're going to call it a movie detail request. And if we head to the Flixter API, we have at the movie endpoint, we have the last one is the movie/detail. And if you click on it, it has a required parameter of the EMS version ID. Okay, so let's test this out. An EMS version ID is going to come from the results we got from getting an opening movie or a popular movie. So let's test this EMS version ID we have here. I'm going to click on test endpoint. Like you see here, we have a movie with the EMS version ID right here, and shows the name of the movie, which is Beast, the duration, the synopsis, and everything. This is what we're going to display in our movie detail page. And in our case here, we could see it was displayed here. So let's quickly define the request, and when we're done with all that, we're then going to move to the second part of this video, which is going to handle building out the UI, as you can see here. So we're going to define our request and close this folder, and in our lib folder, under request and movie request, we're going to create a request called which is going to get movies detail by ID, and going to export it, and we say get movie by ID is going to be async. And we're gonna have a rest variable, and you're gonna pass in the fetch request for that. Head to Flex the API, and we go to code snippets, and we're gonna click on the fetch option. We're just gonna copy this as an example. And really important. I'm interested with the important part, which is the API host, the movie endpoint, and the detail endpoint with a query. I'm gonna copy it, and I'm gonna paste it right here. And of course, we're going to await, of course. And after this, we're going to pass in our options object. And after that, we want to we're going to create a variable called data and await res.json, and we're going to return data. Okay, and let's work on our endpoints. We're gonna make these backticks, and okay, and we want to change this to, we're gonna copy this part right here. Oops, missed this. Great. So I'm going to copy this right here. And paste it. Okay, and the detail, we're going to have a question mark, and it's going to have the ID, the EMS version ID. And if we head back here, you can see it has this and EMS version ID. So I'm going to copy this too, and I'm going to paste it right here. EMS version ID, and then we have equals to, as we can also see here, within the EMS version ID that we are passing as the required parameters. In our case, we want it to it's going to be dynamic, of course. So we're gonna in our parameter, in our request function parameter, we're gonna pass in ID, and in here a template literal, and we're passing that ID. The backticks at the end, and that's literally it. So the get movie by ID request function is whatever we pass as our ID is all going to be at the ID in our requests, and then we return the data that we get from there. Okay, so let's now do that in our dynamic routes. So in here, instead of const my query equals query ID, well, let's see, what are we going to call it? What do we call it? Let's call it our EMS version ID, because the EMS version ID is what we're going to capture from the URL. Okay, so I'll say EMS, oops, write it again. EMS version ID would be equals to query.id. .id, okay? And after that, we are going to create a raw data variable, because of course the data we're going to get is not going to be pruned as we want. So await get movie by ID, and we pass in that EMS version ID that we're going to capture from our URL. Okay, and that's literally it. And let's look back at our request and the results. Let's test it again. Okay, so we are interested with the data, which has a key, and then the movie. So it's going to be data.movie. Okay, so I'm going to create another one. I'm going to say movie detail data will be equals to raw data dot data dot movie. Okay, and now that's what we're going to pass in as our property. Okay, we're going to pass in as our property, and we'll say movie detail data. Okay. Okay, so let's test that out. So up here, I'm gonna say movie detail data, and I'm going to log movie detail data. So now that we've done that, we're getting undefined, which is expected because we aren't, there's no image version ID with 10. So we head back to our dashboard. We want to do something. We want to want to navigate to the movie, the URL that's going to have our image version ID. We're going to use the link component for that. Now I have our dashboard. If we these carousel, every card here has the image version ID attached to it. And how do we know that? Let's head back to our components and click on movie summary card. That's what we're expecting here. That's what we passed in here, and we passed it in from the movie carousel. Okay, and we're passing the movies. We passed the key and the ID, which is the movie.image version ID. And that's what we pass in as the ID prop. So if you head back to our movie summary card, that's the ID we have here. Okay, so what we're gonna do, we're gonna wrap this button with a link component. That's then going to navigate to our dynamic route. So link from next link, gonna wrap our button with it and pass in the href prop, and it's going to be a template literal. So it's going to be slash movies slash the ID, which is the image version ID. Okay, so save that. So if I hover over our movie details, you could see down here we are going to navigate to localhost /movies/ image version ID. When we click on it, it's going to take us to that dynamic route, this dynamic route that we defined here, and it's going to get it from the query and save it as image version ID, and then pass it into our get movie by ID request. Okay, and the get movie by ID request is then going to fetch it from the Rapid API. Okay, so let's test that. So we're going to click on movie details, or more details rather, and as you can see, we are getting our object. Okay, the object about the movie, as you can see. So it is working. Our getServerSideProps is working, and our and our dynamic routes are working. So let's just be sure. So I'm going to head back, and I'm going to click on let's click on Minions: The Rise of Gru. So let me clear my console. So remember, we are using this. We're just rendering. We just have one page, but its data is dynamic. Okay. So I'm going to click on more details for Minions: The Rise of Gru. And as you can see, it's returning another object, another data based on the URL and the image version ID of that movie. And as you can see, we have the name, which is Minions: The Rise of Gru. So that's that on dynamic routes and getServerSideProps. So it's in summary, dynamic routes and getServerSideProps are powerful features in NextJS that allow you to create pages that can handle different URL paths dynamically and fetch data for these pages based on the dynamic parameters in the URL, as you could see right here. So next, we'll be building out our UI and make it similar to what we have right here. Okay, let's get straight to that. Now let's start building out our UI. So the return here, we're going to render a grid, a simple grid. Let's look at it. We have a grid with two columns, one column for the image, the movie's poster, and the second column for the detail. So I'm going to return, and I'm going to render a simple grid, and a simple grid component comes from Manting. So yeah, simple grid, and this grid is going to have a prop of calls, which specify the number of calls that columns we want to have, and we're going to give it a vertical spacing of XL. Okay, so right in there, we are going to have our image as the first column. Remember, image comes from a mountain core. Now, after our image, you're going to have a stack. So this stack is going to house the movie details that we need. So first is going to be the title. From mountain core, it's going to have the movies. They're going to just pass in movie's name for now, and save. So if we head to our movie detail page, you can see we have an image, a space here, which is the image that's going to be displayed, and the movie's name. So let's quickly destructure the important information we have here into variables. Okay, so at the top here, we won't kind of console.log for now because we need it to know what we need. And I'm gonna create const. I'm gonna destructure what we need out of it. So movie detail data. And back inside here, we need the following. We need genres. We need the poster image. We need name. We need release dates. We need the tomato rating, which houses the rating, and we need the cast. We need the synopsis. We need the trailer. We need a trailer, and we need the director. So that is directed by. Okay, and that's literally what we need. So we're rendering this image in our stack, in our grid, right? So we're going to quickly pass in the important data to display the image. So let's do that. So we're going to first of all define the width of our image, and it's going to be 100%, and then the height is going to be 50%. Then the source where we're going to get the image from, and we just destructured it. So we're going to get it from hosted_image.url. Then the alt, like the image alt text that's going to be used as the title for the placeholder, and to describe it to screen readers, you're going to make it backticks. It's going to be JavaScript expression and backticks. I would say movie poster image of, and put in the movie name. So it's just going to of name rather, which would be structure. So just going to be, so if the movie name was Dune, it's going to read movie poster image of Dune. Okay, and they're going to add the with placeholder. So just in case the image fails to load, it's going to display simple placeholder. I've head back here, you can see we have the movie poster image of The Rise of Gru. Okay, so let's keep going. I want to make it as identical as possible to this. So head back. Now we're done with the first column, which is the image. You're going to move straight to the stack. Okay, and we're displaying the movie's name here, but it's not dynamic yet. So we're going to change this. I'm just going to put in name. Let's define some properties for our stack. I'm going to give it the justify prop, with the justify CSS property, and give it flex starts. Then give it a spacing. The value of this spacing is going to be LG, and give it some height. Give it 300 pixels. Then a margin left, and I'm going to give it XL. Then for the title, the movie name, order of 2, which means it's going to be a H2 tag, but it's going to have the size. It's going to have this the size of a H1. So that's an H1. These are all props from Manting. So if we head back here, you can see we have Minions, The Rise of Gru. Okay, let's keep going. So next, we want to display, if you head back here, you can see we're displaying who directed it next. So, make it faster. I'm just gonna click on Minions, The Rise of Gru so you could see proper. proper similarity. Okay, so next is the director. So going to be a text component right under the title. Say text, and make sure you're importing them formatting. Sometimes you could mix up your imports if you just blindly typing it in. So directed by, and we're gonna put in the JavaScript expression and then pass in the directed by variable that will be destructured here from a movie detail data object. Okay, then right below it another text, and this text is going to display the release date. So released, and I'm gonna put in first off, let's see. So the release date, let's check. So the release date that's being returned, let's look for it. You can see it's a simple text with 2022 then 07 then 01. We want, and if you look at our finished product, it's properly formatted it for us. So what we're going to do right now, we're going to create a function or an utility function that's just going to help us to format it from this short form to a proper readable format. So how do we do that? We're going to create an utility file under our lib folder. So right under our lib folder, we're going to create an utils.js file, and let's start defining our function, which is going to help us to format the release date. So we're going to comment and say format release date, and I'm going to export it. Export const format release date. So we're making it readable. Format release date. So what is this going to do? Let's quickly see what it's going to do. Let's analyze what it's going to do. So the this format release date is going to take a release date parameter as its input, and it's going to convert this raw input release date into a date object and format it into a string using the toLocalDateString method. So what does the toLocalDateString method do? It is a built-in JavaScript method that is used to convert a date object into a human readable string based on the local string settings of the user's browser. And it takes on more arguments, including the local and date formatting options, and returns a string representing the formatted date. That's exactly what we did in our finished product. So let's do that. Let's do that. Okay, so I'm gonna pass in a release date parameter, and I'm going to create a new date object. So const date is equals to new date, and that's it. And we're going to pass in the release date into it. Okay, so that's the date object now, and we're going to format it. So to format it, we're going to pass in some settings. We're going to pass in an options object, which is going to define the desired output format of the date that we want. Okay, so let's do that. Okay, so I'm going to create an options object. It's going to be our config file or config object for what we want, for our desired format. So I'm going to pass in year, and the year is going to be numeric, and the month is going to be long, and the day is going to be numeric. So if you look at our finished product, you can see the month is long, the day is numeric, and the year is numeric. That's what we defined here. Okay, so down here we're then going to return our release date, which is indeed now the date variable dot to local date string. Okay, and now what are we going to pass into it? So we're going to take into parameters. The first parameter, which is going to be the en, we're going to be the local, and then the options that we want, the formatting options. Okay, so I'm going to say n.us and I'm gonna pass in our options, okay? And I'm going to save it. So let's implement that right here. So after released, right above our destructured variables, I'm just gonna create a constant, say formatted release date is equals to format release date, the function we just defined, the utility function we just defined earlier. I'm going to pass in the release date that we are getting from our API response, and I'm then going to pass it into this text here, and I'm going to say formatted release date and save. So if I head to you can see now it has converted it for us already. It converted it from 2022-07-01 to a much more readable format. So that's our utility function, which helped us to format our release date. Now we've done that, we're going to head to the next part of our UI, which is going to I think let's see what it does. Okay, after that we have these badges that displays the genre of the movie. So we're gonna loop through them. Let's see. It should be, let's look for genre, and you can see it's an array of objects. So you're going to loop through that array of objects. Okay. So I'm gonna use the group components from Manting, and in here I'm going to loop through. So genres dot map, and every movie genre, that's every genre in our array. What are we going to do? We're going to render a badge. So this badge comes from Manting. Okay, and in this badge, we're gonna have the genre's name. So I'm gonna say movie genre name, and let's save it. So we head back here. You could see we have our genres displayed. So let's give it some styling, and the badge is gonna have a bit of radius, and the radius is going to be small. If I head back now, you can see it now looks identical to what we have here. So next is going to, let's see what's next. Next we're going to render the cast, and as you hover every cast, you can see the name right above them. Okay, so let's do that. To do that, we're going to use the stack. No, we have a stack. Okay, actually, you're going to use a stack because you're also going to render the casts and the tooltip. So let's look at the tooltip. The tooltip component or hover array is going to display something as a hover. So we're going to use a stack to display both these tooltip and then the avatar. Okay, so let's quickly do that. So right below this group, we're going to create a stack. Create a stack, and in stack we're going to have a group, and this group we're going to have an avatar group. So avatar dot group, which is like a group of avatars, and these avatars are going to display the pictures of the actor, of the cast rather. So in this avatar group, I'm gonna say avatar. So I'm gonna display an avatar, and the source file for the avatar is going to be from one of the destructured variables. So source is going to be equals to the actor. Okay, we have to loop through the cast first. Okay, so I'm gonna leave this empty. So we head back and we have the cast, and the cast is an array of objects of the actors. So I'm gonna look through them. So right inside the avatar group, we're going to loop through, and we would say cast dot map, and every cast has an actor, and for each actor, we're then going to render an avatar. Okay, so I'm gonna cut this and I'm gonna paste it in here. So the source file is going to be an actor dot their headshot image dot URL, which is gotten from the object. So go to an individual cast, have the ID and the headshot image dot URL. Okay, so that's what we passed in here, and give it a radius of Excel. So that is going to be very round. So now we've looked through every actor. So I'm gonna save it. And if I head back here, you can see it's loading the actors. So then how do we implement this feature where we hover over them, we have their name displayed? So remember, it's a tooltip. How do you have it? And how do you make it a tooltip? How do you implement a tooltip? You wrap what you want to display with a tooltip, and wrap what you want to label with a tooltip, and then you pass in the label prop to put in the text of what you want to label, of what the label is rather. So let's quickly implement that. So above every actor, want to render a tooltip. Oops. Want to render a tooltip. Gonna wrap it. And for this tooltip, we're gonna pass the label. So what is the label? The label is going to be the actor's name. Okay, the actor's name. So it's going to be actor, that name. And I want you to have a color. You want the color to be blue, and you want to give it an arrow. Okay, so it's going to be an arrow. So with arrow, and that's it. Let's save. Let's see if that's going to work. As you can see, we have that. So you want to wrap these tooltip with the tooltip group. So it's going to be right above the avatar group. We have tooltip dot group, and again we're going to wrap the avatar group with this tooltip group. I'm going to pass in some properties. We're going to make it animate. So I'm going to give it an open delay prop, which means how many seconds before it displays, how many milliseconds rather, then a close delay, and maybe before it goes off. So let's test that. So we have Steve Carell, and you can see it has this nice and transition animation as we move between them, and that's pretty accurate to what we have right here. And now we're done with the avatar group. I think the next thing I want to do is the star rating. Okay, the rating. So we're going to quickly create an utility for our rating. So right up here, it's going to say a comment that says round off rating, and going to export a const that says format rating, and it's going to take in a rating parameter, and it's going to return that rating divided by 10 and divided by 2. Okay, so I think we also did that somewhere. We did that somewhere. Well, yeah, in our cards. So I think let's go to our movie summary cards and fix that. So rather than rating is just going to be format rating and passing rating. Okay, and then where's our rating value? Yeah, it's going to be rounded rating. Good. So back to a dynamic route. You want to render rating right below our cast. Okay, so the rating and then the text. So it's going to be in a group component. So right, why do we do that? Tooltip group. So yeah, right after this group that houses the avatar group, it's going to create another group, and this group is going to have two things: the rating component. So the rating component is going to have a value of rating. So let's define that value quickly. So right where we formatted rating, we're going to create a rounded rating equals to format rating and pass in tomato rating dot, I think it's going to be tomato meter. Are we sure? It's going to be a tomato meter. Okay, so back to rating, the value is going to be rounded rating, and fractions 5 stars, and it's going to be read only. Let's see if that works. So yeah, we have that. So we want to display the text, so the text is going to be right beside it. That's already in the group component. So we're gonna render some text here, and we're then gonna make it an expression and pass in some backticks, then a bracket, and then in here we're gonna pass in the rounded rating and save. So head back, you can see we have 3.5 in a bracket. Great. So after rating, we have two buttons: the watch trailer and the add to watch list button. So this button, when I click on it, is going to launch a modal that's going to display our trailer. And the trailer is going to be, let's see, I think we're going to get a trailer somewhere. Yeah, we have our trailer object here, and it has a URL, and that URL is going to contain the video. So we're going to launch a modal that's going to display the movie. So let's do just that. So we're going to head back, and right below our rating, the group housing the rating, we're going to create another group that's going to house the buttons. We're going to render two buttons. So and the first button is going to have watch trailer, and the second one is going to have another button that says add to watch list. And mind you, this add to watch list button, as you can see, is here. This add to watch list button is going to be dynamic. So when we click on it, we're going to add this movie to our watch list, and once it does that, it's going to display remove from watch list. We're going to implement it after implementing the watch list feature. Okay, so back to our buttons. I want to style it just we have here. For example, we have this icon that shows a movie, and I have this icon that shows a bookmark, and you can see they have these gradient colors. So we're going to implement that right now. So starting the watch trailer, I'm going to add some properties. So first I'm going to give it a variant of gradient, then pass in the gradient prop. So you're going to be the gradient settings. So an object, and it's going to say from. So we're going to move from teal to blue. Okay, and the degree, you're going to have a degree and 60, and save. Head back now, you can see that it's already in action. Great. So let's gonna add an icon to it. So we're gonna have, say, left icon, and this icon is gonna be the icon play from Tabla icons React. So you don't have to install it if you follow the starter files. So icon player play, and you can see we have our icon there. So next is going to be the add to watch list. So if you add to watch list, it's going to literally be the same thing. So we're going to copy hold this and paste it here and make some few changes. So it's not going to be from teal to blue, it's going to be from indigo to cyan, and we won't add any degree to it, just simply from indigo to cyan. And then instead of icon player, it's going to be icon bookmark. Okay, so that's it, and save. Head back here, you can see it's very much similar to what we have here. So after the buttons, we're then going to have summary, and this summary is going to have a synopsis. You can see it has this read more and then a scroll to display the summary if it is long. Okay, so let's hide it and do just that. So Mantin has this nice component called spoiler. I've not seen it in any other UI library. So spoiler, as you can see, that's what we have here. Spoiler, displays what we need and hides it, just like a quick summary. So we're gonna have a scroll area that's going to define the area that we're gonna scroll through. So if I look for scroll area components, you can see it's has this specified height, and if the content is more than a height, just scroll through to display it. So let's do that. So right below the add to watch list button and the group containing it, I'm going to create another group, and in this group we're going to have a title that says summary, which is going to be the synopsis of the movie. I'm going to be a H3, so we're going to pass in order of 3, but we're going to give it a size of H2. Okay, and now below the summary, we're going to have our scroll. Oops, we're going to have our scroll area, and underneath is going to have our spoiler components. So this spoiler component is in between it, the children are going to pass in synopsis. The synopsis is what we're getting from the API response that we destructured. Okay, so the scroll area is going to have a height of 300 pixels, and for spoiler, I'm going to give it a max height of 200. I'm going to show the label, that's like the button to ask you to read more, and it's going to say read more, and we're going to pass it a hide label prop. So if a user clicks on read more and they want to hide it back, what's the label going to say? So the label is going to say hide. You can decide to say show less, but in my case I'm going to say hide, and save. So if I head back to this here, you can see we have summary. If I click, I can scroll through, and I hide, we have this nice little animation that hides the summary. So that's great. So next I want to do now, we want to launch. So when we click on this watch trailer, we want to load the movie for us to watch the trailer on it. So let's do that. So we are using a package called React Model Video. Okay, React Model Video, and it has been installed if you use the starter files. So let's implement it. So right below our stacks, and just before the closing tag for grid, I'm gonna say I'm gonna comment and say trailers model, and in here I'm gonna say model video, and it's a self-closing tag, and I'm gonna pass a prop of channel, and channel means where is it coming from. So it's custom. If it was a YouTube video, would I just passed in YouTube in there, but since it's a custom URL, I'm gonna make it passing custom instead. Then the URL is going to be the trailer, which you got from the API response, trailer dot URL. Okay, and next you're gonna have, so that's it. So we're gonna define states for it. So it requires a state and an open state or a closed state. Okay, we're gonna define the state at the top of our component. So right after we destructured, or let's do it before we destructure. So before we destructure, we're going to define the state. So we're going to say model states, and we're going to is a basic React state. So we're going to say const is open and set is open, or set open rather. Let's just call it set open. It's going to be equals to use state from React, and by default it's going to be false. So if it is true, the modal is going to pop up. If it's false, it's going to hide. So let's pass it in here. So in here, I'm gonna pass in a property of is open. So it's open. We're gonna simply pass is open. So if it is false, which is the default state, the modal is going to be closed. If it's open, if it's true, it's going to be open. Okay, then now we need a trigger for it. So you're gonna say an onClose. But we're gonna define the onOpen first. Okay. So how do we do that? We're going to go to our watch trailer button. Okay, this is going to trigger the model. So we're going to pass it an onClick event. Oops. And onClick event, and it's going to be an anonymous function. And we're going to set that. So we're going to change the state, change our state. So we're going to say set open, and we pass true. Okay, so that means when we click on it, it's going to set the state to open, which is going to trigger the open the is open prop and display the modal. They're going to have an onClose here, so which is going to close the modal. So how do you close the modal? We simply set the open state to false, and we are good to go. So one more thing, the React model package, React model video package, requires us to load the CSS in our application's root. So in our case, go to _app.js, and down here we're going to import it. So we're going to say import node modules / React model video / SCSS. This is in the docs, so / SCSS / model video video.scss, and that's it. And that's the CSS file that we need to import. Okay, so now we can go back to our page and let's see that in action. So if I click on watch trailer, we have this model, and it's going to load the URL of our trailer. And as you can see, we have it loaded, and if you click on play, yep, you can see our trailer is working. So that was made possible using React model video. So let's see, is there any more thing to add? Yeah, so we have our button, which is going to take us back to our dashboard page. Okay, so how are we going to implement that? So at the top of our grid, it's going to add some spacing and display a button. Okay, so let's do that. So first, we're gonna wrap everything here with if React fragment, since simple grid is not going to be the parent component. So I'm gonna right below the simple grid, just gonna put a closing React fragment. Okay, then right up here, I'm gonna a button. Say button, and it's just gonna simply say go back. So let's quickly style the button. So we're gonna have a left icon, and the icon is just simply going to render an icon arrow left, which is going to display a back icon. And then I'm going to have an onClick event, which is going to use the React the next router library directly. So we're going to define new router, and we're going to use the .back method to take us back. Like, it's going to take us back. It's going to keep a history of our movement and just take us back to the previous page that we were, which in our case is a dashboard. Okay, we're not using the slash dashboard because we're also going to have a, like if you look here, we also have a search page. Okay, I'm going to search. I need to go back. So if we put dashboard instead of the history of a method that's going to take us back to our previous state, we're going to have issues UX wise, because you don't want to be on your search page and search for a movie and then click on go back and to take you to your dashboard instead of your search page. Okay, so that's what we're going to use the React router, the next router rather. So right up here, right above model state, I'm going to create a variable called router. A router is going to be use router. And use router is coming from next, and it's coming from next router, and that's it. So back to our button, we're going to have an on-click event on. Oops, just come out of it, and on-click event, anonymous function, and what is it going to be? Let's see what's it going to be. It's going to be simply straightforward. It's going to be router.back. So that's it. Router.back, and it says go back in history. It's going to take us back and save. Okay, and I think now we can clear our console.log, and we have our UI ready. So we need some spacing up here. Okay, we need some spacing. So go to a simple grid, and right after vertical spacing, just give it a margin top of XL. And if we save, you can see we have our UI, and you can see it's pretty much identical to what we have in our final product. So that's it, guys, and in this video we successfully looked at dynamic routes, get server-side props, and we've built out our UI. So in summary, dynamic route and get server-side props are powerful features in NextJS that allow us to create pages that can handle different URL paths dynamically and fetch data for those pages based on the dynamic parameters in the URL. So, and this is very useful for creating dynamic pages like our movie detail page. So, just like you can see here, we have our dashboard, and when we navigate and want to display individual data about these movies, we don't have to create individual page components for every movie, but we just have one page that renders the data dynamically based on the URL. So we'll click on more details. We have the same page component but renders the data dynamically based on our URL. So in our next video, we'll be looking at API routes in NextJS, and that will be using to build out our watch list feature. See you.